You're watching 12 WKRC TV, a new generation of news. This is 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Newsmakers. Governors and state legislators across the United States are facing daunting budget crises. And because states, unlike the federal government, must balance their budgets, tough choices cannot be avoided. Collectively, states face $26 billion shortfall in the current fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. And next year looks even worse, with projected shortfalls across the nation at $68.5 billion. In the face of the worst state budget crisis in 20 years, tinkering around the edges fails to meet the challenge. The only choices available are cutting popular programs and/or raising taxes that nobody likes. That means public K-12 education is on the block with everything else. On Wednesday this past week, several school systems in northern Kentucky shut down for a day to allow teachers to participate in a rally on the steps of the Capitol in Frankfort. 12 News reporter Paul Adler joined a bus from Ludlow.
Okay, we have extra mittens if you need them.
They are taking their teaching skills on the road. They are teachers worried that state legislators need a math lesson.
I just hope to let our voices be heard and hopefully get them to realize how important education is.
It's like a field trip.
Some teachers are calling this a field trip, but it's a field trip without students, one that doesn't end in an outdoor classroom, but at the state capitol.
Stand up! Stop cuts!
Tanya Brummer is here. She teaches third grade, but does not have seniority at Ludlow Elementary. Tanya worries that cuts could cost her a job.
I'm not sure what our district is going to have to cut, but I mean, I only have 3 years experience, so it's very likely. I'm very concerned.
Kentucky PTA opposes any cuts to the education budget and supports increased salaries and adequate health insurance for all educators.
The Kentucky Education Association estimates 16,000 people packed the Capitol lawn, but the most important numbers may be coming out of the Kentucky House. Legislators there are now promising to spare elementary and secondary education from the budget knife.
It's overwhelming. There's so many people here. It's so nice to see kids and parents and teachers and administrators. It's really overwhelming.
It all gives Tanya hope that by cutting class for a rally, she's helped save her job.
We're eager to teach and we love what we do. And
To discuss the funding situation for Kentucky schools, I am joined this morning by the leaders of two northern Kentucky school systems that shut down on Wednesday to allow their teachers to converge on Frankfort. Jack Moreland is the superintendent of the Covington Independent Schools, and Barbara Martin is the assistant superintendent of the Ludlow Independent Schools. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Good morning.
Going into Wednesday's rally, Jack, what was your expectation, fear about what was going to happen with K-12 funding?
Well, we have been faced with politicians saying over time that there have been no cuts to education. But the real truth is, through different means and methods, there have been cuts. So we've been facing cuts now for at least a couple of years. And what they were going into with this budget process is saying essentially the same thing, but with us knowing that there would be cuts. What we did on Wednesday, in my opinion, is that we showed them that there was a sufficient force out there against what they were doing.
Barbara, concretely, what would it have meant in your schools? Would it have meant losing teachers, as Tanya was talking about? Would it have meant increased class? What concretely are you facing in Ludlow, depending on how this works itself out?
If we have already cut $200,000 out of our budget in Ludlow, which is approximately $5.5 million. So if we had to cut 5.2% again, we would be cutting $500,000 out of that budget.
And that was the fear, 5.2% out of a $2 million. Okay.
Yes, and we were looking at cutting things like non-at-risk preschool for 4-year-olds, our gifted program, our AP program in the high school, severe cuts in personnel, which is where all your money is in school systems right now. We were looking at athletics, extracurriculars. So it was going to affect everything from custodians' days of work all the way up to administrators and especially teachers
Just
and
to
kids.
Reinforce that, what percentage of your total budget is in personnel?
About 80 to 85%.
good thing to keep in mind, that
Yes.
there's such a huge amount. Jack, one of the things, a lot of our viewers are from Ohio, a lot are from Kentucky, but people in Ohio may not understand, and I think there's a little bit different situation. What percentage of your operating funds comes from the state, and how much where does the local funding come into all of that? Because I think the mix is a little different than what the viewers in Ohio are used to.
In Kentucky, the SEEK formula is really a combination of local money and state money. And depending upon the ability of the local school district to generate local funds, that changes the amount of contribution that the state makes. So if a school district is a property affluent school district, they may be asked to provide more local funding. If they have less money to come from the local, then the state will compensate that, and that's what the equity suit was all about back in 1990.
Which created CARA, which creates a whole different situation, which Ohio has resisted consistently in the last few years of making those fundamental changes. So the point is, a state budget cut affects the very heart of your budget, because it's the state that you depend on, not the local funding.
In most cases, that is absolutely correct. Well, in all cases, it's correct, but it certainly impacts, state budget cuts impact those property poor school districts more so than it does the property affluent school districts.
One of the things I'm not quite clear about is, I mean, we can talk about cuts because of the budget crisis. We can also talk, if I hear the language of the woman who was talking from the PTA, about the need for increases. Is it that you're facing real cuts, or is it that you want increases and you may not get the increases you want? What's the situation there?
Well, I think it's both. I think the sign said a cut in education is a cut that never heals, and we will feel long-term effects. Not only will our money be going to Indiana to the gambling boats, but our new, young, bright teachers will be going to Indiana for salary. Right now, our teachers went not asking for a salary increase, but asking to keep funding for kids. But we also have to look at, some teachers are paying $800 to $1,000 a month in health care. So we have to look at those issues also.
Because in certain districts, health care is picked up directly by the teachers completely, $800 to $1,000?
The state picks up a certain percentage per teacher, but with the increasing cost of health care, if you're on a family policy, I know some of the male teachers in our district who cover their entire families are having to chip in approximately $800 a month in health care.
One of the things about state teacher contracts is that there are usually, and I don't know in your particular districts, there usually are built-in cost of living types of increases, which from the teacher's point of view, they don't see those as increases. They see those as just cost of living. So when teachers talk about increases, they're talking about something more than whatever the 3% or whatever it is. Is that part of what you're facing too, that you've got contracts that demand that you spend more money next year than you're spending this year, and if the state just keeps things level, you actually get hurt?
That is absolutely correct. We have a mandated salary increase that's based on the cost of living. And in the case of this year, it would be 2.7%. We also have salary schedules that have incremental advances. As you accomplish a year, you move up on the salary schedule. So the grand total of the raise probably would be in the neighborhood of 4.5 to 5%. In a time when we have flat revenues, adding salaries really means one thing, and that is reduction in force in order to be able to give those kinds of salary increases.
One way to handle that is increasing class sizes. This is a standing fight in all education environments. What is Barbara, in Ludlow, what is your current functioning class size?
It varies. In fourth grade, where is one of the testing years where the kids complete a extensive writing portfolio, we have tried to keep those classes about 20, 21. There's a big difference in working with 20 or 21 kids or working with 35 kids. I mean, I've taught in a classroom with 42 freshmen. It's not the same. So I think part of the success, and especially when you're dealing with kids who come to school with some more barriers to learning, that those small class sizes allow teachers to use different instructional strategies to get to know those kids and to really teach those children.
Wednesday evening after the rally, the House Appropriations Committee in Frankfort met, and as I understand, as I read the reports, voted to hold the funding level. Is that what you wanted, given that what our discussion just before about the need for increased budget size? Was that your goal on Wednesday? Are you happy with that recommendation out of the Appropriations Committee?
What they have done, Dan, is that they have added just a little bit of money to the budget process. And that will make up for some money that we had cut that we were scheduled to have cut in next fiscal year. At the same time, they changed the mechanism by which we give salary increases, and so as it looks right now, we're going to be giving a flat $1,080 salary increase to certified employees. There's just enough money in the budget to cover that cost, and so it doesn't allow for any kind of other costs that might change. For instance, if we're having a cold winter, if our utility costs and those kinds of costs would go up, there's not enough money to cover that kind of thing.
So what do you take away from what happened on Wednesday afternoon? Where do you think you are right now?
We're still going to have to make cuts. They may not be as severe as we first thought, but we have to be cautious because in the past, level funding has still meant, as Jack just explained, that we will have to cut.
So what realistically what kinds of things in this environment, not in the dire environment of pre-Wednesday, what realistic will Ludlow have to cut?
I think our first priority will be to preserve personnel, to preserve teachers. Instruction always takes a priority, so we will try to protect that as best we can. Everything at this point will still be on the table because we need to look at everything, but the things that affect kids is where we'll...
What about in Covington?
We have an allocation formula that the board will vote on the 24th, and that will cut approximately 31 teachers out of the system.
Out of how many?
Out of probably 400.
Okay.
And we will also cut some 19 classified people. Those people are teacher aide types. That will come mostly out of the elementary school. So we will go on with our cuts just the same as if the General Assembly hadn't appropriated any new money, because we're already trying to compensate for the cuts that we've already had.
This vote that's going on, right, this is a special session of the legislature, and again, this is different than Ohio. Kentucky legislature isn't sitting all the time like Ohio's is. What period of time does this budget that they're debating right now cover? How far out can you plan? Does this take you through the next school year?
It's interesting because Kentucky just changed the law, and they do have annual sessions now, and we're in an annual session of 30 days as opposed to the regular session, which is 60 days. What they're doing now is passing a budget that will go on for the remainder of this fiscal year plus next fiscal year, because the General Assembly couldn't agree last year to pass a budget. So we have had no budget in Kentucky for almost 9 months.
So this will take you, assuming that they can get this through, this will take you through the rest of this school year and the next school year.
That is correct.
Barbara, what are you, okay, the rally is one thing, and we only have about a minute left. What are you now doing to continue to keep pressure on your state legislators?
I'm emailing on a daily basis. I'm writing letters. I'm encouraging our faculty and staff to continue to do that. Kentucky needs some revenue. And I am very frustrated with our legislators who have signed this no tax pledge. I think they need to look for alternative sources of revenue and fund the schools and the other areas of the government that need to be funded.
I know I just told you we have only a minute left, but you just raised something that I'll go longer. What taxes do you want to see passed?
Well, I want them to look at the cigarette tax. I think that's Dr. Dowd, a state legislator, has proposed that. Kentucky has the lowest cigarette tax in the nation, and we have the highest rate of lung cancer, the highest rate of teenage smoking. Even without education needing funding, I would say look at that tax. That would bring in a great deal of money, and I don't think it would hurt senior citizens. I don't think it would hurt people who can't afford
Politically,
taxes.
That's explosive in Kentucky,
I know,
right?
I know.
Jack, what about you?
Well,
what would you
I certainly agree with what she's saying, but I will tell you that Kentucky's tax system is one of the most antiquated systems that could ever be, and we won't get any total relief until we do a comprehensive tax reform that really gets at where the money is, as opposed to farmers and others.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is You helped clarify a lot of things. I appreciate this. We'll have you back because this issue is just going to mature. It's not going to go away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned. After the break, the effort to use arts and culture to revitalize the Center City. Cincinnati loves to brag about its arts and cultural infrastructure, stretching from old established performing and visual arts institutions like the Symphony, which trace their roots to the 1880s and 90s, to newer but still established institutions like the Contemporary Arts Center that is building an architecturally daring new facility, to brand new organizations like the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center, which is really still on the drawing board and only now rising out of the ground. But when it comes to public funding for the support of cultural institutions, Cincinnati's record is embarrassingly abysmal compared to St. Louis, to Chicago, to Denver, much less New York, Boston, or San Francisco. In the last year, however, Mayor Charlie Luken has taken 2 steps to address this situation. First, he created a new standing council committee on arts and culture and appointed Jim Tarbell as the chair. Second, despite a very tight city budget, he substantially increased funding for the arts and cultural institutions from the historic level of about $600,000 to $2.2 million, despite the budget constrictions. An Arts and Culture Committee has been working for the past year to discuss its progress, I am joined by Council Member Jim Tarbell, the chair of Council's Art and Culture Committee. Jim, welcome back to Newsmakers.
Good morning.
We've been trying to get you on the show for some time about this topic because this is a new committee. It's an area that I certainly care about, and we've had you on, but on other issues, so it's good to have a chance to have you here this morning on this issue. What has the committee been doing? What has been its focus?
Well, it's a work in progress, and the mission statement of the committee, when it was constructed, was very open-ended. And for the better part of the last year, I felt it was more important for me to be out, even though I'm no stranger to the arts in Cincinnati. I felt it was a good time for me to be out, just asking questions and listening to people, and getting a better idea what their concerns are, people that are active in the arts full time. So that's where the bulk of my time has been spent and my attention. What has come from that is, I think, a consensus that there is a marketing plan in the wings here that is stronger than what currently exists. Of the arts in general, to certainly to the local community, but even more so to the larger audience, the regional, Lexington, Louisville, Indianapolis, Dayton, Columbus market, because we are the hub. There's just no question about it. There is no there's no jurisdiction our size within a couple hundred miles of here that has the concentration and quality of arts and culture that we have. Now, the second thing is that in the middle of all this, we happen to have received a windfall from when we divested ourselves from the Anthem insurance program. We received a chunk of money that was unexpected, and while our operating budget is down, because we're in the red this past year, this extra money became available. And when that money comes like that, usually you earmark it for capital improvements, for new things, to get you somewhere where you're not presently. So I applied in the budget process for $2 million for this year and next year, and that was approved by council. And so the real challenge right now for the moment is to program that money, and the work I've been doing this past year has helped quite a bit in figuring out how to do that.
And the real focus of that was sort of presented to people at a meeting on Thursday of your committee at City Hall,
right.
And a lot of it really focuses on Over the Rhine.
Yes.
And we have a map that we can show people, but I want you to, what is the proposal here that you're laying in front of people?
Connect the dots. You know, we have most of the arts and the major arts and cultural institutions are within geographically a short distance of each other in the heart of the city, in downtown and over the Rhine. The infrastructure around them is, in many cases, has deteriorated and is in sad shape right now. So you can have Pavel Yarvi, you can have the best conductor that in the world, and the best program. And if the district is not healthy, if people are not particularly enthusiastic about coming to the district, or you don't have the opportunity for people to walk across the street and around the corner to Music Hall, it's kind of crazy. So a great portion of this attention in the budget will go to at least attempting to rebuild that infrastructure.
Now, one of the things that's being proposed there is that the Art Academy, which has been up in Eden Park, connected to the Art Museum since, well, what is it?
130 years ago.
Yeah, okay, 130 plus years ago, is going to move to the center of Over the Rhine with the hope not only of having an institution there, but because it's an academic institution with students, that you will bring young people to live in Over the Rhine. Is that correct? That this will infuse sort of the day-to-day street life of Over the Rhine?
Yeah, I would say more young people, or more people, not just young people. Within a block of where the Art Academy is moving is the Emory building, the former Ohio College of Applied Science, which was redone a couple of years ago and converted to housing. And there are 59 units there, 58 of which are occupied, and I would say the majority are older folks, most of whom work downtown, and their cultural focus is downtown. So we want to continue with that. We want to continue to appeal to a variety of people, empty nesters, but in this case, more attention being given to younger people, people who are interested or active in the arts, professional artists or students. The Art Academy moving down here is a unique opportunity to focus on the center, physically, geographically, the center of Over the Rhine. It's right on the edge of the central business district. So it's a chance to call attention to all of that.
So the Art Academy moving down there, the plan is still on the boards for the School for the Creative and Performing Arts to build a new facility over near Music Hall.
Right.
So that would be another academic institution, but the idea is to have enough mass. Are we talking about, is there sort of a model for another district in the United States that you think of when you're talking about putting these kinds of institutions together and changing the area?
There are several. New York City, Minneapolis, St. Louis, Rochester have districts that are one way or another are regarded as arts districts.
I think of Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah.
Which has its art school right in the middle and spread out into all sorts of buildings, right in the heart of the old city.
I haven't personally visited Savannah. I just know about it peripherally, but there are a number of examples. I would like to think that there's nothing quite like what Over the Rhine could be. It is so unique. It is so poised.
Jim, a realistic question here.
Yeah.
You've loved Over the Rhine. You've lived in Over the Rhine. You've talked about Over the Rhine for years. This isn't new with this committee. To what extent, and this is more of a global question, to what extent are you becoming the council member from and for Over the Rhine, and Alicia Reese is becoming the council member of and from and for Bond Hill, and that even though we have at-large council people, we're getting district representation. We have less than a minute here.
Yeah, well, I say that to folks who talk about districts, that we sort of have districts going for us already. I'm not too sure that we need to change the system technically formally change the system. I think we have. It's kind of working that way anyway.
Yeah, it does seem to be sort of working that way.
Yeah. Now, I don't want. What I hope is that we can continue to have that specific focus, but what we also serve at large. And I consider my responsibilities to Westwood, Price Hill, and Mount Washington just as seriously as over the Rhine.
Well, we're going to continue to pursue this issue and have you back, and I have the people from the Art Academy here, and this is a big thing that fits into a much bigger picture.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Today is the last day of the Arts Sampler Weekend. Every arts and cultural institution in the region has a wonderful free programming going today. Plunge in and join us again next week. Thank you. Have a good week.